I simply adore Christmas. I love that magical feeling in the air, the cold air, December, winter before it starts to really suck in January, the fleeting illusory sense that maybe, just for this moment, we can all pretend to settle our differences and bear goodwill and happiness and well-wishing towards each other. Call me a sap, call me over-sentimental, but it's always how I felt, and I'll probably always feel that way. Now, Christmas music, on the other hand, that I loathe. Christmas music is usually so vapid, so shallow, so lacking in substance, and so mind-numbingly, obnoxiously overplayed that whenever I hear it on the radio, I just want to punch the radio. I want to smash it. I want to turn it off. I want to get those tunes out of my head, and I never want to hear them again. And then you do next year anyway. And Christmas albums recorded by popular musicians are no exception to this rule, and most of them suck. I can think of only a very few good Christmas songs written by anyone. In spite of all of that hatred, I have to admit, I do own a Christmas album by a popular music artist. And so that is why, just like on Halloween, we find ourselves talking once more about the Noble Surfers, America's band, the Beach Boys.
Brian, why you gotta do this to me?
That's right. Back in the frantic days of the early 60s, when a record company's first goal was making absolutely as much money possible out of their band in the shortest amount of time possible. Actually, I'm not really sure that's changed since the early 60s, but oh well. The Beach Boys released not 2, but 3 albums in 1964, and one of them was this lovely Christmas album. One of an eventual 2 or 3 the Beach Boys would make. And I have to add at this point that this is not the last Beach Boys Christmas album. In fact, they made one about 12 to 13 years later in the late 70s, after Brian Wilson's nervous breakdown and Mike Love's subsequent coup d'etat of the band and takeover of the franchise name, that was apparently so bad the record company wouldn't even release it. Which, given the overall quality of post-1973 Beach Boys, is fascinating to me. Now, this album gets really mixed reviews. The general consensus seems to be that the original songs are polarizing, but the holiday covers are mostly pretty competently done. So let's sink our teeth into the Beach Boys Christmas album. So we open up with Little Saint Nick, which I very easily could criticize because in a lot of ways this is just an up-tempo rewrite of Little Deuce Coupe. But I honestly like this song. Like I said, I'm really not one for Christmas songs, but this one is actually pretty good. It's really catchy, I love the harmonies. It is everything that makes a classic Beach Boys tune. It's just that it's about Santa tricking out his sleigh in the shed and riding it like a hot rod come Christmas Eve night. Man with All the Toys is a very basic song with kind of a weird melody, but not really. It's only about a minute and a half long, and I really don't have a lot to say here the way I do with some of these other songs. It's not endearingly cute or cringe-worthily bad, it's just kind of pleasantly there, you know? Now this is what I'm talking about. This falls somewhere between cutesy and cringe-worthily bad, and the badness comes mostly from the fact that you got Mike Love on lead vocals. And this song is Mike Love at probably his most annoying. His nasally voice is all over this song, and while it kind of works because he is supposed to be singing from the perspective of a child in the choruses, it's still annoying. The story is kind of endearingly cutesy. It's about an older brother taking his younger brother to a department store Santa, and the younger brother pulls off Santa's beard and finds out there's just some fat, nasty, middle-aged guy there, and is understandably wigged out by this. But I don't know. This is the kind of thing that this kind of song is the reason that a lot of people nowadays don't bother with early Beach Boys. And while I love the early Beach Boys, I do understand why they sing about why some people are put off by a lot of their stuff, because they have a tendency to sing about endearingly, annoyingly white bread things that no one cares about besides small children and old people. At least in 2017. Maybe the teenagers in 1964, this was what they got down to. Maybe that's what people of that era were like, my God, this is a fascinating story. Santa's beard. Thought-provoking and intense. Now this, again, is kind of just there, but this is much more in the mold of Little Saint Nick, because this feels less like a Christmas song and more like the Beach Boys just took one of their breakup songs that Brian had written the previous day and inserted Christmas into it. And as such, it's honestly pretty good. And Mike Love's vocals are probably a little less annoying here because he's singing about being dumped. And so in the back of your mind, you're like, yeah, you go girl, dump that dude. And it's so close but seems so far away. Christmas Day is easily my favorite song on this entire album. And it's mostly because for once, and the Beach Boys have a knack for doing this. They did this in their early years. They did this a lot more after 67. But they did this in their early years too. They'll get a song that just hits you at the core of your being emotionally. And this is one of those songs because this perfectly encapsulates how I've always felt about Christmas and how I feel about it to this day. And it's just a wonderful song. Although, since this is a partially comedic review, I do feel the need to point out that this lyric is a lot funnier than they ever intended it to be. And so many hearts are gay. Oh, they are, Al, but I don't think that's limited to just Christmas time. And now we've arrived at the standard fare. What 90% of all Christmas albums are. Just your favorite pop singers singing over the same schlocky orchestra, the same tacky arrangements, in the same obnoxious lyrics that you hear blaring out of department store speakers every time you go outside throughout the entire month of October, November, and December. The harmonies are okay, though. While I don't love the song or anything, We Three Kings of Orient Are is a weird choice to put on your Christmas album, especially since even in these more conservative, more overtly Christian days, it was not hugely common to stress the Christianity of Christmas on your Christmas albums. Unless you were a Christian artist, of course, but that's what I'm saying. And so it's pretty weird to hear such an overtly Christian song on an otherwise almost completely non-religious Christmas album. And also, it conjures up strange and possibly disturbing images of the baby Jesus being surrounded by the Beach Boys, Brian Wilson presenting the gift of Pet Sounds and the bootleg Smile tapes to the newborn King of Kings. Now, I wouldn't say that I like this song per se, but it's definitely one of the better sort of semi-traditional Christmas songs that this band covers on the album. Apparently, it's a song that Elvis made famous in the 50s and early 60s, but honestly, I was not even aware of this song until I heard this album, which maybe that vindicates me. Maybe that means I was successful in avoiding Christmas music. I don't know.
He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake. Oh, you better watch out, you better not cry, you better not pout, I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town.
The Beach Boys version of White Christmas is okay, and I've got to admit this song has always been one that has spoken to me quite a bit, especially now that we don't really get White Christmases anymore. This song is... No! I can't do that joke again. I already did it in the Jethro Tull video last year. Now I'm gonna have a red mark on my face for the rest of the show. I love this song, but it's not for the reason you think. Yeah, it's a great cover of a beloved holiday classic, but I love this because of Dennis's little monologue in the middle of the song, and more specifically, the fact that he flubs the line.
And if you happen to be listening to this album right now,
and on top of this, and this shows you how little the Beach Boys cared about this project overall, they left it in. He stumbles. I just did what he did, but I'm an unprofessional music reviewer doing this for free on the internet. These guys were big name pop stars. They're being paid good money for this. This was a professionally released album, and they left it in. This album is whatever. It's not really bad, it's not really good, it's just there. It's better than a lot of people's Christmas albums because it has at least some original material on it. But on the other hand, it's original material they clearly didn't put a lot of work into. And this whole album is very obviously just a toss-off made to satiate the record company and make the Beach Boys as much money as it possibly could in as short a time. At the end of the day, would I recommend this? Probably only to diehard Beach Boys fans. The rest of you can just listen to some of the first songs on the internet and laugh at how hokey, cheesy, and forced all of it is. In any case, like I said, I recommend this really only to Beach Boys diehards, but listen to it on the internet if you want a cheap laugh from the first half of the album. After that, unless you want to giggle at Dennis's flubbed take on Auld Lang Syne, probably not for you.